Glover is finally out on modern consoles, and it proves that remakes and remasters matter. Now, I think us as retro gamers understand this fundamentally. We want these games to be accessible to any audience at any time on a modern platform. Obviously, you get little bells and whistles like up-res, maybe changing controls, improved life and checkpoint systems, and of course, trophies. But I think I differ from a lot of retro people in two ways. One, I like that we are striving for preservation so that, you know, we have all these games, Croc and Glover and Spyro and Crash and all of these on modern consoles. But I'm also not extremely passionate the same way a lot of retro people are, because I think it's just extremely unrealistic to expect every single game or the majority of games to be playable on modern consoles, or at the very least accessible through some online library. I just think it's not very feasible to do. And another place where I differ, and I think it's probably going to be more controversial, is that I am okay with just okay ports of games once they're accessible to people on PS4, 5, Switch, Xbox, all of these modern platforms. Because ultimately, once the game runs okay and looks okay, or as okay as an N64 game can do, then I think it's okay, and it's just the fact that it's accessible on modern consoles. That's the most important thing. I mean, we go back a couple of years to the House of the Dead remake. That game is so ugly. And on the Switch, it doesn't run great. On the PC and PS4, it runs fine. That is the definition of, we have no way of playing this game. The source code is lost. Unfortunately, it's not great, but it's the best we're going to get. So we sort of just have to grin and bear it. And at the end of the day, House of the Dead is now playable on modern consoles. Obviously in a bit of a different form, but it's still playable. And Glover is just a straight up remaster. It's extremely faithful to the original game, but now it's up-res, it's widescreen, but it still looks and plays like an N64 game. And now we're getting into the weird platformer, which I'm not opposed to playing, which is something I said on this channel a long time, because this era of 1995 to early 2000s platformers is just so fascinating to me, because every single developer was trying different things. And if you're thinking of developers that really try different things, you have to look at Glover. Because if you didn't know, Glover is a physics-based platformer where you control a glove, as the title would suggest, and as you can see from the gameplay, you roll around on a ball, and it is extremely unconventional. And when it works, it's actually quite fun. But more often than not, it doesn't really work very well. Now, this is my second time playing this, and the PC port, I believe, came out 2 years ago, and it was a bit of a strange one, because Glover originally ran at like 20 FPS, as every single N64 game did. And it is a physics-based game, so you can imagine when you up the FPS, things start to go wrong. So on the PC version, you had 20, 30, and 60 FPS modes. And the higher the frame rate went, the more issues it caused. The ball would roll weirdly, Glover's walk animation would get caught up, and all this sort of stuff. And they also removed the N64 fog, which I think is a must for any N64 or PS1 game. The fog is just ridiculous, so when you're remastering one of them games, you have to do it. Now, the PS5 version is a bit different. I can't tell if it's 20 or 30 FPS, but it's certainly not 60. And also the N64 fog is back. It doesn't seem to be as bad as what I'd imagine it looked like on the N64, but it's still fairly foggy. I went back and I watched my PC review, and you can see basically the whole level, whereas here you can't really see that far in front of you, which is pretty interesting. I don't know why they did that. I could maybe understand it on the Switch if they were running into problems of maybe getting it running, or they just didn't have the time or the budget to put into it to get it run on the Switch. But for the PS5, it should be fine running without the fog. So I just don't understand that, but I do understand locking it to a lower frame rate, because it did cause a lot of problems. Now, this is like a telethon plead. If you like this sort of chill retro content, I am so close to 1,000 subscribers. So if you like this sort of stuff, please subscribe. Now, let's actually play Glover so I can show off just how weird this game is. Now, switching over to the game, because I actually think it's best to just show you what's going on, how weird this game is. So it has a very strange atmosphere, but as you can see, it looks like an N64 platformer, which is an era I am extremely nostalgic for. And what I like about it so much is that it's not really a conventional platform. Obviously, in any platform, you're expecting the grass level and the fire level, but here's like carnival level, pirate level, all this sort of stuff. And as you can see here, I'm 37% complete the game. I put about 2 hours into it last night. I'm not sure if I will beat it, but I just want to show it off here. So as you can see, this is Glover. So he walks around like a normal platforming character, which is pretty normal. And as you can see, the N64 fog is in full effect. It also has inverted camera controls, which I can't change, but I'm kind of getting used to that now that I'm playing a lot of retro games. And Glover can do a flip. I don't understand what the flip is for. He can double jump and do a slam. And that's basically all the Glover sort of things that he can do. And as you can see, there's all of these different worlds around. And you are actually the good glove that fell off the wizard, and the bad glove is causing all the problems. So as you can see here, I am controlling a ball walking around. This is the easiest way to control it. You can also stand on the ball and roll around, and it actually inverts the controls. Now that does lead to some issues. I'll put some clips up of when you are walking on water, the ball floats. And when you're in the middle of getting back up onto a platform and then also walking on water, the controls invert and go normal again and invert and go normal again. So it's just a bit weird. The thing is with this game, it obviously controls extremely unconventionally, which makes it feel a bit janky. But once you get used to it, it's actually not that janky. Now, everything else about the game is kind of janky. You will sometimes fall off platforms randomly. The enemies are just feel strange, but the walking and movement is fine. I think a big problem with this, and I will show it off later on, is that it just doesn't really follow any conventional design philosophies of games. And I understand this is like, okay, it's an N64 game. Certain philosophies weren't established, but I will just show you later certain things. Like, some enemies will drop these little garubs, is the name of them. So some enemies will drop them, others won't. Some enemies you can kill, some you can't. And there's no real indication as to why you can or can't do that. But as you can see here, moving around these levels, and specifically, there's some levels that are really bad, and then some levels that are actually pretty good. There's a treetop level that I thought is probably the best level in the game, realistically. And like here, you're sort of like battling with the... Not battling, but you have to really take care with the physics. Like if I start to roll here, I really have to push up to get up. And yeah, it's... Again, it is completely unconventional, and that's the thing that makes it stand out for better or worse, which I will show a bit more later. And like here's a good example of how they use the ball to good effect. So these buttons back here are used, you need to roll the ball on it to activate it. So here it's like, okay, I wonder what I do. So I sort of drop the ball here, hopefully, let's see. And then let it roll down, wait for it to open, and then there we go, I'm through. And it does give you these kind of situations where, as you can see, the camera messes up constantly in this game. But they give you a lot of different situations where you kind of have to think outside the box, and I think that is the thing about Glover. It's not always great, but since it is so unconventional, there are certain things that you almost have to retrain your brain. And this is the thing, this is my second playthrough, and on a second playthrough, now that I sort of know what I'm already doing, it's a way better game. But on the first playthrough, it's actually extremely frustrating. This is one of those cult classic games that even people that really like it don't actually really like it that much. They understand that it is just extremely weird. So a lot of the issues with Glover are perfectly shown off in the first world, which is funny because most other platformers, you know, 1-1 is like, oh, study 1-1 to figure out what the design of this game is like. And in Glover, it's the complete opposite. So this enemy is an enemy that you can't kill, or an enemy that I haven't managed to kill. I'm not sure. Maybe you can kill him, but I've slapped the ball at him. Nothing happens. You can stun him, but that's about it. So that's an enemy that you can kill. Or you can't kill, sorry. And then here, we have an enemy. Now, one of these tutorial people tell you about it, these little tutorial hats. They say if you slam on them, you can damage them. And that's totally cool. Also, the music in this game is just strange. So I actually want to collect all the garubs in this level because I actually forgot how you find the last one, which is ridiculous, and it highlights one of the biggest problems that I have with Glover realistically. And here's a part of game design that actually works out well. Like, it shows you, okay, there are things out of your reach that you can't bounce up to, so you have to figure out how to do it. So you roll on the ball. Well, you can actually probably double jump for this one, but yeah, you can double jump because his height is actually pretty tall. But this one, you stand on the ball, you jump up, there you go. Okay, cool, you found that. That teaches you exactly what you need to know. But here I'm like, oh, there's 3 garubs left. Well, what do I do? How do I get to them? Well, let me show you. This is a problem that's present in a lot of the first world and then just kind of disappears for a while, where some of the garubs are really hard to find. So you might be looking, okay, look at these pillars over here. They all have a texture on them. This one doesn't. I wonder why. Now, not that you would notice this without ever playing it before. You can push it over. Don't ask me why, but there we go. I got all the garubs. I got the trophy. Now, one thing I will say is the platinum for this game is actually really nice. It is just collect all the garubs in the levels, and that's it. Which is a nice one considering what kind of game this is. I think if you had to, you know, complete the time trials and all that, it would honestly just be an exercise in frustration. Because if you take your time with this game, it's actually similar to Croc, which should be releasing sometime soon, the remaster of it. It's actually similar to Croc, where if you take your time, it's fine. But then once the level design ramps up to you needing to do things at speed, it runs into the controls just become an issue. Whereas on the starting levels, they're not really an issue. And part of the issue with the controls in this game are literally just because it's unconventional, and that's it. That is the only thing about it. Once you get the hang of it, they're actually pretty good, but it still feels fairly janky. And here's another thing. So I think it's fairly easy to understand that those bricks are breakable. They look like breakable bricks, okay? And imagine you're just a normal person exploring this level, and you're like bouncing around. You're like, okay, I need to dodge this enemy. I also want to break this, so I will go here. I will break these pots because more than likely something will be in it. But guess what? You won't be able to get all the Garobs. And what you might notice here is this texture on this wall is ever so slightly different, but not really that different. That, again, I don't know. If you've played Glover, let me know if you ever figured this out, like, fairly quickly. I only figured this out after a while. There you go. There's a breakable wall. And it's just those little things that, I don't know, it doesn't really teach you, it doesn't really set you up to look for breakable walls in that way, especially in these first couple of levels. So yeah, it's a strange game. And then just look at the boss fights. Again, they're just weird. There's not really much to them, and it's not instantly obvious what you need to do. And that's one thing that I want to highlight. Like, if you play even the original Spyro, everything is so well telegraphed. You know the exact enemies that you can flame or charge into, and it's just perfect from that sense. Whereas Glover just isn't that. As I said, those dolphin or shark enemies, whatever they are, they should be killable, but they're not. Other enemies will drop Garobs, others won't, and none of it's really telegraphed to you, and that's basically the problem with Glover. I think as a concept, as a weird platformer, it's so unique, and you can have some fun playing it, but it's just one of them games that is strange and is better used as almost a case study rather than, oh, you have to go play this game. It seems to be a competent PS5 port. Yes, it runs at a low frame rate, but that's probably tied to the physics. The fog is still there, but I haven't had any real glitches where I've fallen through the map. It's more just a sort of jankiness of the controls that you sort of have to contend with, that I presume were in the original and maybe only worse. And it has a trophy list, so I mean, that's that's basically all you want for a remaster. I don't think it does anything to the original. Basically just gives you the original, obviously widescreen, all that good stuff, gives you a trophy list, and it's accessible. And hopefully going forward on the PS5, on the Switch, on the Xbox, on Steam, everything will be accessible for basically the indefinite future until Sony go bust, or Microsoft, or Xbox, or whatever. But I think if them companies go bust, we probably have worse problems on our hands to worry about. But we'll see where that goes. Let me know if we're going to pick up Glover. I believe it's out. I'll flash it up. I should have actually looked this up. It's out. Bam. There. It's out that day. I believe Friday or Thursday maybe. So let me know if you're going to pick it up. It's a game. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you want more retro stuff. Join the channel members down below. I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.